Welcome to Creamer Media's Polity. I'm Amy Witherden. I am at the Institute for Security Studies in Pretoria to meet with Tizina Ramagaga to discuss racial polarisation in South Africa. Tizina, in a recent article that you co-authored with Gareth Newham, you said that Freedom Day, which was celebrated last week, was a good opportunity to reflect on the progress that South Africa has made towards becoming a rainbow nation. How do you assess current racial perceptions?
Well, I think in any study of social dynamics in South Africa, race will always be a factor considering our history. But I think we need to separate perceptions from reality. You know, for example, after the murder of the AWB leader, there were perceptions from people, whether externally or internally from the media specifically, saying that, you know, South Africa is on the brink of a civil war or something like some racial civil war. But I think on the ground, well, the reality was that if we looked at South Africa, the majority of South Africans were not interested in some sort of, you know, civil war or anything like that. Instead, we were engaging in discussions and deliberating on issues on how to get around, you know, the causes of such incidences of murder and crime in South Africa. As opposed to be engaged in some sort of civil war. So I think we need to separate perception from reality. So if it's okay to have perceptions on anything, we all have perceptions on a lot of things, but I think we need to accompany those perceptions, or those perceptions need to be supported by a rational assessment of reality.
Please can you outline the dynamics of the renewed focus on racial relations in South Africa following Julius Malema's Kill the Boer antics and the murder of Eugene Terreblanche?
Well, I think what both incidences did, I think they did, you know, make South Africans focus more on race relations. I think we're always talking about race relations either, you know, behind closed doors or in our homes, offices, whatever it is. But I think these two incidences facilitated a national dialogue or national debate on race relations in South Africa. Again, I just want to emphasize the whole thing of perceptions versus reality, that you know, we heard people talking about the relevance of struggle songs in today's context, and as well as the reasons or the motives behind the killing of the AWB leader and so on. So, and there was a perception from some people that, you know, these were racially motivated. Some people brought in arguments about labor policies or unfair labor practices, or the relations between the farm worker as well as the employer and the employee on the farms, basically. And then, but then the reality is that, you know, we also have to look at the real reasons as to why the farm attacks occurred. As we noted in the article, there was a committee of inquiry report in 2003 that 90% of the perpetrators that had been interviewed cited robbery as their motive, as opposed to racial reasons.
Recent events suggest that racial tensions have reached a peak, but in your article you referred to surveys conducted by Future Fact in December last year and the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation in 2008 that seemed to paint a different picture. Please can you outline the results of these surveys?
Okay, the Future Fact survey is conducted annually on an annual basis, and the recent report, the most recent report, which was in 2009, found that 54% of South Africans, which is a quite large majority of South Africans, over half of South Africans, say that they first identify themselves as South Africans first before any other grouping in South Africa, whether it's race, religion, or cultural identity. They first identify themselves as South Africans. And I think that's important, and that number has increased from the previous study from 46% to 54%. The other thing was an increase from 55% to 64%, which is about 2/3 of the South African population, or the people that were interviewed in the survey. They agreed with the statement that I believe all people are my brothers and sisters and equals regardless of their race, religion and political beliefs. And only 6% showed signs of intolerance. So, and it's really unfortunate that the 6% is the one that is highlighted in the media and so on, and not the majority of South Africans who feel quite opposite. So I think it's also a move as well towards social cohesion. Yeah.
So really rather positive. Now, you said in your article that race is not necessarily the key driver of social division. Please expand on this assertion.
Well, I think, income inequality is always dividing societies. It's not something that is unique to South Africa. The gap between rich and poor and so on. We have different levels of people in society. But in the South African context, the majority of people who belong in the lower levels are black, and upper to middle class are white. So in the South African context, it's a bit more racialized, but it's not to say that race is dividing people apart. It's the income inequality, the different income inequalities, and those things need to be addressed. But those different income inequalities separate society, not the races. But in the South African context, as I said before, it is racialized because of policies that were implemented in the past and institutionalized and implemented in the past, which is why you find, that you can't separate income or a discussion or a debate about income inequality in South Africa away from race.
South Africa has a long way to go before it can be defined as a non-racial nation. How can South Africans move towards racial cohesion?
Well, I think in terms of racial integration, I'd have to say that it's a responsibility of both, I think, government and us, as part of the society. I think in government's role is the role of facilitating or bridging the gap. Let me just put it that way, bridging the gap between the rich and poor, income inequality, to facilitate racial integration or social cohesion somehow. Because as long as those income inequalities, continue to exist and they widen, I don't think you're going to find a lot of people, integrating on different levels. But I think development policies from government and so on need to be continued and implemented effectively. And then on our side as individuals, in terms of social cohesion, I think what we could do is try and understand and question our own beliefs and stereotypes about certain races in South Africa or groups in South Africa or cultural systems or beliefs that we might have. Question and understand them so that we can basically grow from our perceptions, which may not be based on reality, our perceptions of other races.
Thank you, Tizina.